let's talk about the Gwen changes. So her passive does actually have a 0.72 per 100 AP percentage right now, scaling from 0.65 percentage AP scaling, right? So this is actually giving her 0.07 percentage more damage. Early on it will not do much, that's the thing. It will feel like you deal some extra damage once you stack up your Conqueror. Before it will be a bit diminishing, because once you stack up your Conqueror, you automatically stack up your Q as well, right? That just does make sense, right? And so in here we can see that you're gonna have some Conqueror stacks and your Q will apply 4 times your passive. So it is definitely gonna feel to be something early on, but it just thins a bit more, I would say. It won't be something insane, because this is more so a scaling oriented buff, you know? But then once you have some AP, it will feel to be 1000 times nicer. Let's move on to the next champion. Hello there, let's talk about these Jayce changes. So knockback distance is increased to 600 from 500, while also notably no longer has a fixed displacement location for the target. What does that allow you to do? What does that even mean? So now you can actually insect as Jayce. So for example, if I wanna press E and I flash behind the target, it will push the enemy champion towards me, right? Like, it's actually a really nice thing, and that extra 100 range generally allows you to situation more smoothly push away your target away from you, so it's a bit harder for that Renekton to connect his E into you, because now the E is actually a little longer. So that's definitely helpful, as we can visually see, because for Renekton it's a bit harder to connect his E as a matchup example, while also notably for some other champions it will be a bit more difficult to basic attack you for an action, as an example, or any type of range champ, just because right now it's 600 units away, right? Before it was 500, so it's less so smooth for a range champ like an action to connect multiple basic attacks into you after a short trade, and more so gonna affect matchups that sort of want to gap close in with their dashing ability like Renekton. But if Renekton doesn't hit, so of course the first part of his E, he can't actually go further more, so that's another good example. While also notably you can catch off guard your opponent right now, because not only you have more range, as I said, you more 100 range, right? You also can insect, right, which allows you to actually just really, in a really cool way, to get that extra tower shot off. Sometimes you're gonna get 2 tower shots off, depends how deep your opponent is, of course, but let's say realistically 1. It could be 2 as well. If you slow your opponent, it could be 2 tower shots as well, of course, but you gotta be really quick. So your goal is very simple. If you're freezing, you can turn into hammer form, press your E, flash. Realistically you're gonna get 1 tower shot off, but it really depends, you know, how deep your opponent is. Like if your opponent is, say, this... Oh, I fucked it up. Might be high ping, but I may F it up a bit. It's on me actually. So look. Like depends, you know, it really depends, but realistically you're gonna get only 1 or 2 tower shots off, which just will allow you to actually like go for a decent all-in. While also notably, one of the notable features, or recently so, that you can actually push people away from you, as I said before. It still doesn't push its champions through towers, but this sometimes, very rarely, it can actually backfire. Because if you push a Rengar back into a bush faster, that may backfire low-key, but it's not really something of a big deal. Because, like, one other thing you should also watch out for that could backfire if you push a champion away. Right now you push the champion away farther, which means you could possibly push the champion into the next push, which you didn't intend it to, and then you cannot get a really quick like basic attack off, right? So that's like one thing to watch out for, because if you push away the enemy champion too far, as you can do it now, like this, I messed up the angle, but you guys get my point, then you won't be able to get that basic attack off, so that's one of the notable things. But generally speaking, these are really good, decent buffs for Jayce. They don't necessarily imbalance him, but people really have to watch out for the E change for Jayce. So that's it for now, guys. Have a nice day. Actually, not have a nice day, because I'm gonna do some other videos as well, so don't leave yet. Also, let's talk about Garen. He has some really nice changes. So for now, his W will last 4 seconds. Before it was only 2 seconds, and it's scaled up to 5 seconds, but that shouldn't be a concern that you get 1 second later on, just because you really got to maximize out your early game. So this is generally speaking a good buff. While also notably his spin has 4% more scaling, but at the maximum points it's gonna be the same as before. But again, there is a lot of emphasis on Garen's early game, so it's not a problem that later on it will have the same ratio. Now, one of the notable things about Garen right now is that before, let's say you're level 3, level 2, whatever level you are, I don't even care honestly. You're fighting a Jax, right? Jax jumps in, does his thing, right? You got a W whenever he is about to recast his E, right? Because it is lasts only 2 seconds, right? Ideally you need to layer it, the shield especially so, to check his E, right? And now it takes less skill because this lasts 4 seconds, so you're gonna tank more, get more tenacity for a longer period of time, so it's less so much of a game of guessing, while you can actually you can maximize out really nicely your short rate, so this is a definitely good quality buffs. It's a buff in every single matchup, even so into range matchups, because for example this lasts 4 seconds right now, right? And you're gonna max this ability as your last resource. This will help you a little bit into range matchups as well, because 2 more seconds getting poked for less, right? By 30% you're gonna reduce damage. That's again a great thing because you will have more survivability. While also notably E got buffed early on when you don't max it, right? By 4% later on is the same as I said before. And so what does that even mean? So generally speaking, you wanna Q-max into range matchups. So both of these buffs are ideal for range matchups. This is anti-poke and you're gonna have more flat damage out of it. So even if you don't max your E and you're forced to Q-max, otherwise you can gap close. These are great changes, so range matchups you feel to be easier, melee matchups as well, so this is generally a good quality buff, because I said this champion has been dogshit forever, and now that Healthbreaker got nerfed, Stridebreaker sadly doesn't provide damage, because the issue is Garen needs as much damage as possible in a all-in, otherwise if he doesn't execute with his ult, people may just escape or kill him, depends, right? So you really got to get as much damage as possible on Garen. So Hullbreaker being shit now, Stridebreaker not giving a damage, right? Like it has way more cooldown as well. It generally made Garen way weaker. So this will allow him to have a smoother early game. And I would say his early game is way better right now, because he's an early game oriented champion as well, right? And where you gotta maximize out your early game, I mean, and now this will be great to do so, because top laners have to watch out for that 4%. His wave clear also gonna be a bit better, because he has no whip right now as before, so hopefully this will actually smoothen. Whip doesn't even exist, I don't know why do I even type, but it's not here, that's what I wanted to simply prove, right? And now your wave clear will be a bit better, as well, because you don't have whip. Then also notably your E trades will be better, so that's really it, you know, these are really good quality changes. So let's jump to the next champion. Let's talk about the Illaoi changes. So health growth is higher by 9 per level, base mana is increased by 50, so you can get an extra Q off, right? Or a W, right? But also notably your mana growth is higher by 10, so you're gonna have more poking capabilities, so maybe you don't necessarily need that presence of mind all that much. Ultra into tanks I would still recommend it, if they are very durable. And also notably Prophet of an Elder God gives you 0.5% more healing per tentacle hit, right? Now the issue with this buff is that it's useless. Why do I even say it? For example, you're fighting the opponent, right? And the issue with the new map for Illaoi is that you don't really reach your opponent. IW doesn't connect. So the healing buff is useless, because on your Q you're gonna heal, that's it. And most parts of the map your tentacles are sadly not reaching. And I'm not even just bullshitting you guys, but from one hand the tentacles are not reaching, from the other hand the minions are tanking Yuri as well, right? So for example, I wanna fight my opponent, it's just ain't great. Now if I eat my opponent, then I could get a tentacle proc, right? But only one. Only one, right? Hypothetically. Now, the other issue is that you don't really choose where the tentacles spawn. So, preferably, if the tentacle would more consistently spawn here and here in a area where both of them can connect into the enemy champion, that would be the healthy way of balancing Illaoi, in a way that in these areas, at least these two areas will be 100% covered, so you get a wave clear, and you get to fight the opponent with your tentacles, right? Because this is a shit tentacle angle anyways, so this does not do much, so they have to spawn in these sides consistently, I would say, right? Then when it comes to downwards, in here there's no real way of fixing, because the wall is too far, so in here there's actually no real way of fixing. Perhaps Red could make it a bit longer, and in here the same thing should apply. It shouldn't be RNG, So ideally it should spawn on these two sides, in my own opinion, to make the champion more useful. But that's it for now, guys. Let's move on to the next champion. Now let's talk about the Darius specific changes. So his mana cost and his Q is less by 5, which is something, I guess, and healing is increased by 2%, and later on, I mean, if you hit multiple targets at max is 4%, right? You also get like a 5% extra damage, right? Armor penetration. And it also scales up to 40% from 35, so this is a 5%, you know, extra armor pen, which is nice to have. Now, the issue in Darius is that he's still Darius. He'll have a bit more damage, less mana cost, a bit more healing, but he's still gonna be sort of a bit more stat checky the champion, but it's just still Darius. That's the issue with it doesn't solve many Darius issues. Because the current problem with Darius is very simple, you know, as other Threadbreaker champions are sucking it. Threadbreaker sucks more, right? I know it does provide mobility, but it doesn't provide damage. And it's kind of an issue in some cases scenario, because with the combination of whip and Q, you are able to more smoothly, like, of course, push a wave. So champions that don't have Goldwinker as well, their wave clear is generally worse, right? That's one thing to point out. But also, notably, the other issue is Hullbreaker is nerfed, and often you're forced to only split as Darius. And there are not many good items for Darius overall in this season. Like, most of, I guess, Titanic is sometimes nice, because it lets you to stack your passive a bit faster, but that's really it. And most of the items, new items, are not necessarily in Darius's favor, so like his itemization went progressively downweight the heal, in my opinion. And that's all I would say, really. Like, this doesn't really fixes many of the Darius issues, because the 5 mana problem, I don't know, bro, like, I don't know if it does too much. I guess you spam this ability quite often when you poke, but often that usually players just hold into their Qs, and they don't even use this because they're gonna overpush the wave. So it's kind of a fake buff, then the E buff is kind of nice, but it's like, at most, like, your damage will feel to be similar. I guess you reach faster the benchmark of executing someone with your ult, which helps, but I feel like it is a bit of a cope buff, because champion needs a rework, truth to be told. That's it for now with the Darius changes. Let's jump to the next one. Let's talk about the Camille buffs. They're actually decent buffs, so he does actually get 24 more HP, which is definitely great to have. Cooldown, so less cooldown on his passive by 2. Later on it will be the same, but that shouldn't be a concern, because then you already scaled up. Precision protocol gonna give you 10% more early on, then later on it will be the same as it scales up completely. But this is a very useful buff. All of these are actually serving Camille's survivability, while also you can force fights more often and have a better chase. So for example, more than often people will counter pick you if you play Camille, or so many matchups are just simply so unfavorable early on that that extra Q mobility will help you a lot to sidestep abilities, like alone you wanna sidestep his W, you know, his Q. And this definitely helps a lot to sidestep that Ornn W, to at least he doesn't get like the brittle part on you, right? This helps a lot into Ornn as an example. But also notably into champs that you can actually beat in a all-in, say Kayle, right? You can force an all-in into a Kayle. This will help you to be a bit more sticky, because you're gonna get 2 Qs off when you play aggressively, and you can swing in more basic attacks, which is definitely helpful, but into unfavorable matchups, as I said, like Darius or not. Every single buff will have passive HP, but the Q buff will specifically help you a lot, just because it's actually way harder for champs like Warwick, Darius, generic like counter matchups. It's easier to get out of their basic attack grasp, right? It's easier to get out of like Darius's or Warwick's basic attack grasp, right? And they won't be able to get enough basic attacks on you to actually get a really good like trade value on you. So this definitely helps you a lot, helps in any type of matchups, especially helps a lot into Aatrox. That 10% is very juicy, trust me guys, just because like sidestepping that Aatrox is a very big thing on Camille. Like, you already see how quickly I move, right? Like, that's insanely fast, 450, right? The other notable feature is that as I said before, the most important one is that you can disengage more smoothly, and that's gonna spare you at least like 1 basic attack amount of HP, just because you can disengage way faster. So this is a very big buff in my opinion. The reason why she gets these buffs, because often you cannot hit your E. There's so many walls, where you can't really like connect your E properly, right? So because it's harder to connect your E properly. Now in here you guys can see me connecting my E, right? Now and then you'll be able to connect it, but generally speaking it's kind of hard to connect it just because when you're positioning for a wall angle, they're already positioning away. So in here, no, I misclicked a bit. This does hit, right? But what if they slightly move downwards? Then it doesn't hit anymore because the walls are generally speaking farther from each other than they were in the middle of the battlefield. So there's like this awkward like angle where you cannot get your E off. Even in here, you guys see me connecting my E, but the issue is if they slightly move back like this, I don't connect it anymore, and then I'm in an awkward spot because they wanna all-ins me as an example, right? So that's it for Camille. I think these are really good changes for Camille that don't necessarily unbalance her. Let's move to the next champion. Let's jump to the next champion, which is Jack. So now his W does 50% damage to structures, but also notably his ultimate also does 50% damage to the structures, the only effect. Now, just because they buff Jax, they are also nerfing C by 15 flat damage, and also by 0.5% HP base damage, which is more than 20 less damage on your E, right? That's actually quite a big thing, so he has less fighting power, but he has more pushing power. So if you are hard winning this lane, this is definitely a good buff. But if say you are not necessarily hard winning, then this will definitely hinder you the E nerfs. So look at this. So my W does actually damage to tower. So you can see a maxed out W is 190 with no extra AP, of course. So you're gonna get some decent like pushing power out of it. Well, also as I said before, notably your ult also does of course deals some decent amount of magic damage on it. So with the combination of your passive with these like on tower effect abilities right now, you'll be able to have a similar amount of push as a Trundle has possibly. So your pushing power will be definitely really strong. You know, the plates are completely there, but for example, if you get some items, you know, let's say like I get like one item, 20 points. Okay, not too many items, I'm gonna get one item, right? We can check out the pushing power of this. I just kill this Ash. And we can like see it with our eyes how quickly this pushes. Now I know this is a plated tower, but by the time you have finished, you could have plated tower. Even if not, it's just like a visual presentation of how this works. You don't have to, by the way, to proc your passive procs on the tower. I just ulted so, but you're gonna get more procs if you ult a champion, but then you kinda aggro yourself as well, so it's just like that, you know. So we can visually see that there is definitely some extra pushing power there. Now, if you go AP, like full AP, then again, you're gonna deal like way more damage if you go for the Baus AP build, right? And now the second tower, right? 61, 61, 35, 61, right? And we can visually see that there is definitely a DPS difference with the new changes. That's it for checks for now. Let's move on to the next champion. And let's talk about the Gragas changes. So it does get 6 more HP per level, 0.2 armor per level, which means in 3 levels you have a cloaked armor amount of armor with 5 armor per level gain. And also empowered attacks is now consumed against structure for 50% of the damage, 20 less cooldown on Azor, which means you can gank more frequently people. Have more pressure in the lane, of course, to like sort of bomba people under your own tower. So these are a very good Gragas buffs in my own opinion. So one thing I'm curious of, does the HP based damage also apply to the minions? Because that would be really interesting, right? And also if off the tower you could actually like AoE a champion, because it does matter a lot to know, because into a tank sometimes you wanna like apply those void grabs to the tower into a tank, and you kinda want to get your empowered W off, but if it AoEs from the tower into the enemy champion, then that Ornn could CC you as an example and all in you. So it does, oh, that's a bit bad. So it does AoE. Maybe if you position in a specific way it doesn't. He does. Okay, so this could backfire if there is a CC champion nearby, so they have to be at least this far, okay? outside none of the minions as well. Or actually, let me showcase to you guys. You guys gonna have a better wave clear, of course, if the minions are close by. So if they're not in a close position, you can be tricky as well, and you can push them closer, of course, right? But one thing I want to show you guys, so they will last it, and they won't hug generally the tower, right? But they have to be at least, I suppose, this far for them to not get AoE. Yeah, at least this far, right? This is sort of the benchmark. I think if I put it a bit closer, then it... Oh, this is fine as well. Okay, so what's the benchmark then? Even so closer? Okay, so this is the benchmark, right? We can visually see. This close, it will AoE, so watch out on that. But often they will last hit minions in a different position, so if they don't position like this, you should be fine to apply those void grudges to the tower, to apply that empowered basic, right? Now one thing I didn't really check out yet, if it does actually apply the basically, oh, I fast forwarded 10 minutes, that's a bit bad. That's a mistake on my part. So I wanna see if it actually does apply your 7%, because if it does, then that would be great. I wanted to fast forward only 30 seconds, but it's my bad. Blades have to ideally fall, I think. So 3635, right? Push the wave in. It does look like you apply the 7% to towers. And your W is quite frequent, right? Like even if you don't have, it does look like, so you can get plates really quickly off, and you can get plates really quickly off the tower before you get like too many items. And so we can visually see even without like too much cooldown. Your W already has a very low cooldown, because generally you're gonna go for cooldown runes, right? Cooldown boots and whatnot, so it's gonna be very spammy. So just because it applies the bonus damage to the towers, you'll be able to control those plates really easily, especially if you kill your opponent, so that's definitely helps. While also notably, as I said, you're gonna have a bit better wave clear, because you can actually like AoE the cannon or the other melee minions of your W, which is again like very helpful. So these are very good quality buffs for Gragas. I don't know why this red game so overbuffed this champion, but I love it. That's all I'm gonna say. I feel like there are too many buffs in here, but you know, be it. I play the champions, I like this. Now this change is kind of a joke, and I didn't even feel like reviewing it, but you know, just because it's a top lane change, I'm gonna add it to the list. So you get 25 more range on Volibear. Why don't you already get that much? Because the thing about Volibear's Q is that it's an empowered basic attack, and all of them get bonus attack range, but this one doesn't. So that's it. This is our basic attack range, 150. I press Q 175, right? It's a bit easier to connect this Q. Now, in jungle, this usually does not do too much, usually. So they're trying to balance Volibear in a certain way that, I don't know, like they don't want to buff his Q speed to connect his Q. But this is such a weird champion, because either he connects his Q and his combo and he's too strong in the jungle, or he doesn't. And red game so far went for some shitty buffs here and there, but it's like, this won't be generally too useful of a buff, just because it's only like 25 range. Like sometimes it can be a surprise for your opponent that you connect your Q. Sometimes, I assume, until people get used to the new spacing of Volibear's Q, because it has a teensy bit more range. So sometimes this will catch people off guard, but that's it. It's just like a noob. It's good against like beginners, right? Or people that didn't really read the patch notes or whatever, but I feel like this is useless. There should be more range. Maybe it should be at least 200 in my opinion, and then it would be at least like somewhat more viable on top lane, or lucky 225 even. Maybe that's a bit too much, but at least 200, that would be like a great number in my opinion, because you could do something with that, you know. But yeah, that's my opinion. This is a bit useless of a change. But I guess Volibear players have to take whatever they can get. Let's move on to the next champion. Let's talk about these Chogath changes. So cast range is now increased by 2.5 per stack, up to 25 at 100 stacks. So this, generally speaking, allows you to have a bit more range on your R, which will match your range, right? Which will definitely match really easily the range of your basics, right? Except if you press E, you're gonna have a little longer E range, right? But so one thing you should actually like consider, that right now it's easier to flash into the Baron pit and E pit. so you can do it slightly earlier if you want to steal, but also this is just a really nice change to just like smoothen out the champion, because your basic attacks are longer than your R range, and that's just often weird. So now Chogath can actually look for you know, easier executes, and these type of changes are really good just to like smoothen out the champion. Like if I flash, I can insta R. Right, before you had to walk a bit closer and you could be possibly CC'd, you know. So it's just really all about like smoothing out the champion, because even in here you see, like, I leave a ward there, right? Let's say I wanna flash ASAP, right? We are here, right? And then we only move slightly and we already like or the Drake, right? Meantime, there's like a ward where possibly when you go in, you could get CC'd, right? There's like a ward for it, you know. And now there is like less like gap where you need to walk in to sort of or the Drake. You see the R range, right? Like we just go in, slightly move when we can, alright? Now, just to give you guys a very good perspective on this one, let's reset the game. No points on R. Of course, you're gonna have at least like 6 stacks at least when by the time you rotate to the Drake, but or you know, around that area, around that range if you ever rotate to the Drake, but we're gonna do it on 0 stacks for now. And we can see that if I spawn the Drake as an example, it will be less smooth, the Drake still. So where is the Drake? Drake, any type of Drake, doesn't really matter. You see it's much smaller, right? So let's say I wanna flash in as Chogath, it's more awkward because I need to walk more, right? And it decreases the likeliness that I steal this, so people could CC me, then it could get smited, right? Because your aura usually does more damage than the smite. That's why I kind of wanna flash in, so this will smoothen out your steals and your potential to get kills. So this is definitely a really good change. So that's it for now when it comes to the Chogath change. One thing to mention, you can R through walls more smoothly, because for now you can't really do that. Like if I wanna R through the wall and there is like an enemy champion, I can't really do it. Or I can do it, but only if they are turbo close, which is often not too realistic. So this will help you in specific situations, you know, mainly at the specific situations where they sort of like they're through the wall, someone goes for a short dash through the wall and you cannot reach it like this. But if you have like more stacks, then if Grapes dashes to the wall or something, you know, then maybe you just exactly get to R him in time, you know, like it's just very specific. But that's it for Chogath for now. Let's move on to the next gen. And the last top lane change is the ranged top laner right now is Timo. So adaptive type changed to magic from physical, so you don't have physical damage anymore. While also notably, which is kind of weird, his E got nerfed, so the ratio is lowered by 5%, and the recharge time is lower by 5, because he's generally an annoying champion for people to deal with in lower ranks, so I assume that's why he's getting changed. It's kind of weird because they converted his AD to AP now, as we can see, but then they nerfed his E, the scaling on it. So you don't necessarily even get much more damage out of it, because people will usually go for MR runes. So you're gonna deal a teensy bit more damage on your Q occasionally when you use it than your R. But it's like often I think Teemo players go 1 attack speed, 1 adaptive now. So I just don't know, these changes are a bit weird. And then this looks like a general nerf as I see it. Then the rest of the changes are not necessarily for top lane, so I think that's it for the top lane for now. Remember, some of the buffs are very useful, great. Some of them are just like, what is this? What is this? They could make even easy be a bit faster, you know, when it comes down, but whatever, you know, it's a very hard to balance champion. So that's it for now, guys. For real now, it's not like the Jayce it's not like the Jayce video where I just autopilot said that. So that's it for now, guys. Have a nice day. And remember to check out the Patreon in my description, because you're gonna see some other type of content that you would love to enjoy to watch. I usually tend to upload as much as possible, but now my internet is working yet again, so I can upload again on my Patreon. So see you guys there as well, and note that the first week is for free, so you don't lose any amount of money if you don't like the content there, so that's totally fine. If you just change your mind later on and you don't want to like continue subscribing to me anymore, it's definitely cancelable.